Hi, Alan Arkish here. Well, I'll cut right to the chase. I've just turned 70. And when you turn 70, you start thinking about the story of your life, reflecting on it. And maybe thinking about an autobiography, which I actually started writing about 10 years ago because Joanne and some of my friends and people would say, my kids, why don't you tell these stories, Dad? You've got all these great stories. Why don't you write them down? And I'm not a good writer. I'm an okay writer. I write very, very slowly, only 50 pages and 75 pages maybe in all that time. But I'm a good storyteller, and I enjoy things like Trailers from Hell. Trailers from Hell is a website that Joe Dante started in which various film buffs talk about a movie they like. They introduce it and then they do a commentary on the movie while the trailer plays. And it's really fun and it's really interesting. And I thought, well, why not do a commentary on my life? And what other subjects besides movies? Well, guess what I chose? I've started this record collection in maybe 1964. Meet the Beatles or Times Are Changing were the first records. There's 2,500 vinyl here. It's about 4,000 CDs. They go all the way around the room and so forth. And there's also these. These are mixtapes, which I made starting in 1976. Here's what the boxes look like. They have, some of them have names and some of them have dates. And the ones that have this date, that's my birthday. It's like a diary of what I've been listening to and what my year was like. They're very personal. And then when there was a writer's strike, I transferred them all to digital files. Here's two more. Mr. Fantasy is British psychedelic rock. When Dinosaurs Ruled the Earth is all about the classic rock bands and that heavy, big sound that they had. So I started thinking, well, how do you start this musical thing? And all of a sudden, this came in the mail. I had ordered this when I read about it. I was very excited because I had a bootleg of that. And I had been to this concert. This is like the second Who concert I've ever been to. And it was May of 1968. And it was before I worked at the Fillmore East. I was just a customer then. And when this came on and I heard Summertime Blues and Can't Explain, it said to me, this is why I love rock and roll. Because the sound of these young guys, they were 23 years old. I mean, what were you doing at 23? Playing these chords, these songs as if their lives depended on it, showed me that that's what I go to and that's what I want to see when I see a live show. Now, I've seen many live shows and the band plays their set the way they're supposed to and you hear all your hits. But The Who on this night is a band trying to achieve greatness, a band trying to be the greatest band in the world. And that's what I look for in a concert. Usually that happens on a Saturday night late show. But what you get is the sound of transcendence. A band that sounds like they're racing down a mountainside and can go off the road into sudden death and tumble around and their car explode. Will they make it to the end of the song? Well, they do a 30-minute version of My Generation that's completely nuts. So this is why I love live music and why I love The Who. So let's just do a quick rundown. The Who's first album, My Generation, they were 19 years old. Jesus, they wrote this song at 19. This is an anthem. The first album I bought of theirs is Happy Jack. Very different sounding, more humorous and witty and funny. And songs like Happy Jack and Cobwebs of Strange, they really were mixing up the sound that they were getting and they attempted something like it's a song score. And I'd call it an operetta because everyone says Tommy's a rock opera. But anyway, this is called A Quick One. And it's a 10-minute version of a 10-minute song with all these different parts. And they tell a good story. So the thing I kept feeling is that the person that worked behind this, Pete Townsend, was very intelligent, very funny, and very ambitious and full of ideas. Like this next record that they put out, which is December of 1967. So The Who were not getting played on the radio. So what did they do? They made an album about a radio station that plays nothing but Who. It's Radio London. All the ads, like here, are satires, and they're all recorded by The Who, and every song that you hear is a Who song, and it's got some good ones. It's got Tattoo, which is a song about what it takes to be a man, masculinity, and it's got Mary Ann with the Shaky Hands, which is about masturbation, a topic they they return to over and over. Pictures of Lilies, another example of that. I'm a Boy. Anyway, it's really, really good record. I'm going to give this a 7 or an 8 till you get to the last song, because then I Can See for Miles starts with a huge chord and a tremendous rush of drums and bass sound. And at that point, The Who and that song and this album becomes an 11. This is The Who at their most high energy in the studio. It's the kind of thing you expect to see live. And this is, in a way, a clarion call for what's going to happen next with The Who. And I Can See for Miles gets faster and faster and faster until at the end it just turns into pure energy. Now, if you like that record, just really quickly, I'm going to tell you about this. This is, you're seeing double here, see? Both look the same. This is an album by a woman by the name of Petra Haden. She somehow became obsessed with this record and did a note-for-note copy of it, of all the instruments vocally. She sings the drums, she sings the guitar, she sings all the parts. She even did her own satire. It's very charming, it's very funny, it's very much in the spirit of this one. Petra Haden, she's in a group called the Haden Triplets. Her dad was Charlie Haden. Great jazz bass player, had his own group and played with Ornette Coleman. So she comes from good stock. You should get this. Now, what was going to be next for The Who? I mean, what other ambitious things did they have in mind? Well, a roommate of mine got a advance copy of a 45 of a song by The Who that was in stereo. Now, all of us were just such rock and roll freaks. Remember when you would get together and listen to new records? Well, we're all in the apartment because this was something off The Who's next album, off their rock opera. This was Pinball Wizard, and it was the first 45 in stereo. And all of a sudden, you heard that acoustic guitar intro coming out of the right-hand speaker. Remember when you used to listen to music and you would look at the speakers? Coming out of the speaker, and then came Townsend's big chords out of the other side, and then Daltrey's voice in the drum saying, "Ever since I was a young boy, I played a silver ball." And that 45 and that sound exploded into the room. And all you could think after it was over is play it again, and what's the record of that rest of that album like? And here it is. It's Tommy. It came out on May 12th, 1969. There was a lot of excitement about it. People say it's a rock opera. It's really a bunch of connected songs. It's a really serious attempt to talk about someone who may or may not be autistic. You know, it's a psychological study. It's again Pete's ambition. This is trying to express things in rock and roll music that had never been expressed before. So we all gathered at my apartment on May 16th, 1969. This is a hint here, if I remember the date of what, this is an important day. So we all tried to get through this record. We listened to as much of this as we could. It's a 3 LP set. We didn't get through the whole thing. And we ran off to work at the Fillmore East because we were all ushers there. And The Who were debuting live this record that night. So aside from that excitement, I just want to say this was the most exciting rock and roll show that I've ever been to. And it's not just because the music was great. A lot of shit happened. Okay, get comfortable. So The Who go on and everything's great, and they're playing Can't Explain and The Substitute, and because there was such excitement, what it was is the ushering crews had 4 people. And one would be at the top of the aisle near the lobby, the other would be on the side door, the front corner, and then the best place to be was right down front on the aisle. You were 5 or 10 feet from the stage. You were standing in front of The Who in full flight that night, and we all took turns rotating on that first show. And I was down front watching the amazing journey, just like pinned back by the greatness of it, and I noticed there was a lot of smoke in the air. Now, 1960s in the Fillmore East, there was always quite a bit of smoke, but this was more than usual. And I'd been down there too long. I thought, well, better go back to the top of the aisle. As I'm walking up the aisle towards the lobby, I see that the lobby is full of firemen and policemen and plainclothesmen, and outside, because you can see right outside to the street, because there's glass doors, are fire trucks. And there's quite a bit of smoke and a flickering light. And as I get to the top of the aisle, some cop, and they're having some kind of meeting, bursts by me, practically knocking me down, and runs down the aisle to the stage and jumps on the stage and is looking for a microphone. Well, there is no microphone on the stand because it's in Daltrey's hand and he's whipping it around above his head. And the Who are peaking with listening to you, I get the music, following you, I get the heat. I get excitement at your feet. It's the end of Tommy. And this guy is fighting with Roger Daltrey for the microphone. He's a plainclothes cop, and Townsend turns around, sees some guy in a suit fighting with his lead singer, and without missing a beat, on this tremendous energy, does a big arm swing like he did in those days, runs up and kicks this cop right in the nuts. And the guy goes down like a stone, and Bobby Pruitt and some of the Who's roadies grab this guy and drag him off the stage, and the audience rise to their feet. They smell blood. It's gladiatorial. It's like ancient Rome. And everyone's screaming, and the cops and the firemen are coming down the aisle, and Pete Townsend's Bill Graham's trying to get Pete's attention, but the band peaks, and without more than a 3, 2, 1 countdown, they go into Summertime Blues. Everyone's thinking, how do we get control of this situation, except the Who are singing, gonna raise a fuss, gonna raise a bother. Rock and roll moment. Bill comes out, goes past Townsend, waves him down, goes past Daltrey, and gets the microphone and says, everyone calm down, we have a little problem. And then he proceeds to do the best thing possible. He lies to the audience. He says that we got a fire across the street, and it's no problem, it's just some smoke in here, and we want to open the doors and get the smoke out, and go back and bring you back in at the end of the smoke coming out, and you can come back and see the rest of the Who set. Now, that's a complete lie, because what had happened is that in the front of the Fillmore East, in one corner was a little bodega, and they had an electrical fire in their wiring system, and it was burning, which meant that the corner of the theater was on fire. And what you got is 2,700 kids. And Bill says, and the ushers will show you out. Now, these 2,700 baby boomers had something in common. They'd all gone to the public school system in the tri-state area. So there's two things that they really drummed into your head from the moment you showed up, and they were two kinds of drills. The first kind of drill was in case of nuclear attack. It was called duck and cover. It was practiced a lot, especially around the Cuban Missile Crisis, and you'd sort of go under your seat, under your chair and your desk and cover your head, and good luck to you when the bomb hit. The other one was the fire drill, and we had hundreds of fire drills. And we all knew what to do in the case of a fire drill, because one of the ushers at that point, with everyone at high energy, says, it's a fire drill. Everyone grab a buddy, no talking. And that crowd came down, and we showed them out, and the theater was empty in like 5 minutes. And all that was left was firemen and smoke. Well, the Who didn't come back right away because of the fire that night, and they came back on Sunday and did another show, and they came back 3 weeks later, and they performed incredibly well. They did Tommy on the same bill as Chuck Berry, and the Who did 3 or 4 songs behind Chuck Berry, including Johnny B. Good, and I have this memory of Townsend and Chuck Berry duck walking back and forth. So if anyone has a recording of that, you can reach me through Facebook. But anyway, that Fillmore Burning is one of the greatest concerts I ever saw. And if you're curious about what the Who sounded like in those days, get yourself this. Here it is. One of the top 5 greatest live albums ever recorded. This is an 11 too. This is an 11. And it's got the Who set before Tommy. It's got a complete version of Tommy. And a couple months later, the Who were at the Isle of Wight, where they were recorded and filmed. So this is like the companion piece. This is one of the great rock movies. It's very simply shot, but it shows the kind of energy that you have with the Who at their all-time peak, and it has, in both of them, a transcendental rock moment, which is when they combine My Generation and The Amazing Journey, and the band is at full speed, and as if he had put it into nitro overdrive, Keith Moon drums passes all of them, and they all give chase until Townsend starts playing big power chords, and it all turns into White Light and White Heat. Really, both of those get 11, but there's an album that they followed it with, which I'm going to give a double 11 to. Huh? Who doesn't have this record? This is Who's Next. Everyone loves this record. There would be no FM radio without this record. And when the first time you put it on, you heard that synthesizer riff on Bob O'Reilly, and then the big chords, and then Teenage Wasteland. There's always Teenage Wasteland. Huh? And what does the album end with if it starts with that? What could top that? Won't Get Fooled Again. Here's this new boss, same as the old boss, Won't Get Fooled Again. Okay, it's got Behind Blue Eyes on it. The song is over. This is a perfect album. It gets like a 22. You know, everyone has this record. You've all heard it a million times. But they weren't going to rest on their laurels. No, sir. They made another concept record because that one was supposed to be one, but it didn't work out. So Pete decided to write a concept record about his life, and it's called Quadrophenia, and it's a story of the mods and the rockers in England in the early 60s, and it's really, really well done. It's one of the most beautiful sounding records I've ever heard. It's produced and engineered by the great Glenn Johns, who did many Stones records, and Pete made a movie. They got together and made a movie about the story, Days of the Mods and the Rockers. It's by Frank Rodham. This is the Criterion version. It's very interesting, and Sting is in it. He plays the head of the mods, so I'd recommend this. Now, they then went on and did the Who by numbers, which is not on that level of achievement. I mean, it's probably a 7 or 8, but a 7 or 8 by the Who is, you know, better than most people. It's kind of a Kinks record. It's funny, it's witty, it's got great characters. I like this record a lot. And then the record company was relentless. Give us more product, give us more product. So they went in their vaults, and out came Odds and Sods. This is their leftovers. And Who leftovers are better than most people's regular records. This has Long Live Rock, and a song about meditation, and a song about getting peace in this life, and it's called Pure and Easy, and it's one of the best songs that Pete has ever done, and that's like a leftover. Anyway, get Pure and Easy. This is kind of hard to find. Now, let's talk a little bit about, if you want to find out more what they played like and what they looked like and what their story is. This was put out by some big box store when everyone thought the record business was going down the toilet, which it did. So they were trying to find new ways to sell your stuff, and they made this documentary about the Who. It's mostly interviews. It's if you're a Who fan, it's fun, especially Pete describing Keith Moon's audition. Very funny stuff. After 9/11, the Who played as part of the concert for the city of New York. They played Won't Get Fooled Again, and it really is one of their best performances of it, and certainly everyone in Madison Square Garden, the police officers, the firemen, the Who, the audience, all understood the meaning of Won't Get Fooled Again. Very great performance here, and if you get this, you also get to see David Bowie sing Heroes that night. But the Who movie of all Who movies, here we go. The Kids Are All Right by Jeff Stein. He made this in about 1977, 78, and it's a story, the whole story of the Who, their whole life. And it starts out so well. It starts out with the Who on the Smothers Brothers show, taking the piss out of Tommy Smothers and his brother Dick, and they start to play My Generation after everyone was kidding about how they like to wreck their instruments. But what they didn't know, and nobody knew this, is that Keith Moon had gone in, and instead of having a small smoke bomb, he had tripled the amount of black powder set in these canisters behind the band. And when they get to the big chords and it's about to all take off in My Generation, the stagehand, not knowing what happened, hit the plunger, and you could see all the cameras shake, you know, and all the equipment goes over, and there's a giant bright flash, and Pete Townsend grabs his ear, because at that moment, he lost the hearing in that ear. And much like myself, I kind of blamed Pete a little bit for me having to wear, hearing aids after all these years, a lot of loud music. But anyway, it's good to see. There's also film performances of Baba O'Reilly, Won't Get Fooled Again, and Who Are You? And it's the last time you'll see Keith Moon on film. They recorded this album about the same time, and shortly after this album was finished, Keith overdosed. And there's always been a little speculation about not to be taken away here on his seat. You know, people think that Paul being barefoot on Abbey Road, that kind of thing. You know, stuff backwards on the disc. Anyway, this is a very good record. It's got Who Are You? And if it wasn't for this record and a couple other Who records, CSI would have no music. We'd be watching all 300 episodes with opening credits and the montage would be silent. Okay, if you want to see more of the Who, here's the Woodstock box. This thing is cute, isn't it? It's got some of Roger Daltrey's Fringe here, or it might be David Crosby's. Anyway, the Who played, you know, really well that night, and it's really well edited, and it's edited by Scorsese and Thelma Schoonmaker, and there's all kinds of freeze frames and so forth. And again, someone tried to get up on the stage and get the microphone. In this case, it was Abby Hoffman, and again, Pete was territorial and kicked the shit out of him, and they dragged him off. And, you know, the Woodstock movie, Joe Cocker, you know, this still holds up really well. And, you know, in about another 15 or 20 years, this will be a Jewish holiday. Okay, let's go deep catalog here. What you got is, this is called Pete Townsend Scoop, and there's two of them. There's Scoop 1 and Scoop 2 or whatever it is. If you're a huge fan and you want to hear what his demos were like, because he wrote all the songs and he would record the demos at home on his own machine and play the parts and sing it. You can hear the original demos on Pinball Wizard, Happy Jack, Quadrophenia, Magic Bus, Behind Blue Eyes, and some blues. He actually plays Driftin' Blues, a classic blues number. So very interesting, but only for you completists. But not to say that if you're really only going to buy one record you don't have from this, I would say Rough Mix. Ronnie Lane of the Small Faces and Pete got together and made this wonderful acoustic record. It's very touching. It's very personal. It's stories from their lives and growing up. Again, it's called Rough Mix. You know, go to Amazon, click on Rough Mix. It's going to be like $6 or something. Now, speaking of albums, my favorite title for any record ever. Late 60s greatest hits from The Who. Here it is. Meaty Beaty, Big and Bouncy. I can't even give a wisecrack after that. I mean, is there ever been a more perfect name or perfect description of The Who's music? Big and bouncy and beaty and meaty. And this is supposed to be them when they're young and them now, and reverse it. You don't have to get this. There's a million greatest hits of The Who out there, but I just love this title. Which brings us to this day. Because on this day, The Who are asleep in Central Park. And part of the story is, how did they get there? Let me find, because I have it down here somewhere, the album we started this all off with. Here it is. Because these two, that was really graceful. These two are connected. Remember I talked about there was a Friday and a Saturday night show. At the end of the Friday night show, The Who, you can imagine after 30 minutes of wanging away and doing My Generation, the kind of energy level you're at. And actually, I got to experience that once. Remember I mentioned that The Who played for 6 nights at the Fillmore to do Tommy? Well, we had behind them a scrim, because when they finished their intro songs, we raised up to reveal the light show, and the light show told the story of Tommy. It's very theatrical. Now, a scrim is like a nylon stocking that's like 40 feet across, and you can't see through it. But if you're standing at the scrim, looking out, you can see the audience. And we all took turns standing behind Keith Moon. So you were on stage with The Who. The power, the energy unleashed. I mean, I'd be there for one song. I couldn't believe that these guys did this every night. So they go back to their hotel in that kind of mood, which is the Waldorf Astoria. It's a nice hotel. And Keith Moon has too much energy, and he starts setting off cherry bombs and ash cans and firecrackers, which of course wakes up everyone in the hotel. He starts blowing the doors of different hotel rooms and blowing up his mirrors and everything. And the management from the Waldorf arrives, and then the police arrive. So the police are going to haul him off and put him in jail when Frank Barcelona, their touring agent, arrives. Now, Hit Frank became after this one of the most powerful agents in all of rock history. He's a real New York street guy, and he's talking to the cops, and Keith is locked in the bathroom, and they're all banging on the door and everything, and Frank spreads a little lettuce around, you know. I got that line from Little Steven on the Underground Garage when he told this story. And they get Keith out of the bathroom, and everyone's, you know, handshakes and everything, and the Who have to move to another hotel. So that night, they went to a lesser hotel. I mean, where do you get a hotel room at 3 in the morning in New York? And they have to record this album again. They have to perform live the next day on 3 hours sleep. So they do this show. Almost all of it is from the second night. It didn't seem to affect them on stage. But at the end of the show, they go back to this other hotel. The same problem, too much energy. Trash cans, cherry bombs have been, you know, built up, they resupplied, and he starts lighting them, Keith, and throwing them down the toilet. Now, if you went to Fort Lee High School like I did, you know that when you put a cherry bomb down the toilet and flush it, when it explodes, it blows up all the pipes. So now there's water flying all over the place, and Frank Barcelona has to show up, and the police are there and everything, and more lettuce around, and now they go and put him in another hotel room. But by then it's morning, and they have not slept, and they have to go and have their picture taken in Central Park for an album cover. And here's the Who, asleep. The bad boys that they are had to take a nap while they're being photographed. See what I mean about rock and roll? This is rock and roll at its purest. I love this band. I love talking about them, and thank you. Good start. Nice to see you.